Hello and welcome to Learning Plan 5. This is a short learning plan. We only have a week to work on this because it's a pretty simple one. We are going to be learning about Form 4136, that is the credit for federal tax paid on fuels. So before we go to the form, one of the readings was Chapter 14 in the publication 225, that Farmer's Tax Guide. So it's only 3 pages long, that chapter, or this chapter 14 is, and a couple of the bigger points on it. So the purpose of this form is to get a tax credit for federal excise tax on certain fuels purchased that are non-taxable. So the Form 4136 that we're focusing on is the credit part of this. The Form 8849, which we're not doing, that would focus on the refund. So we now have the option of taking the credit, the one that we're working on, the 4136, on our annual tax return that's filed yearly, or there is the option of filing for a refund on a quarterly basis. So you could do this instead on this Form 8849 or this other Form 706, that you would get a refund every 3 months rather than waiting until the end of the year. You have to qualify for that. So we're just going to focus on the credit part of it. So the purpose of the fuel is what makes that determination. So what we are going to look at is fuels used in farming. To do this, we have to see what it means for a fuel to be used in farming. It has to be used on a farm for farming purposes. We'll go over that. It has to be used off-highway and for business use. And it can't be used like in a household or anything like that. So the main uses, if we look over here for farming, would be to consider that, or to be considered a trade or a business of farming. So pretty much you can't be a hobby farm that you aren't making any money and still get the credit for it. The farming includes a really wide range that would be like livestock, dairy, fish, poultry, fruit, orchards, plantations, down south nurseries, even greenhouses if you're raising agriculture or horticulture items. A farming purpose is fairly broad, but pretty much you have to be the owner of the farm, or the tenant, the renter, or the operator. So that would be the person in charge, and you have to be the ultimate purchaser of the fuel. So you are not allowed to buy the fuel and then sell it again and then try to claim the credit. So you have to be the ultimate purchaser. You have to buy it and use it yourself. If we look at the tax table up here, or the table up here on the taxes that you're allowed for the fuel, we can see that for farm purposes it has to be either gasoline, an undyed diesel fuel, and alternative fuels also qualify. One thing that does not qualify is dyed diesel fuel. And for the purpose of our case studies, if it ever says diesel fuel, we are assuming that it is dyed diesel fuel and that it is not allowed for the credit. As I stated, the fuel cannot be used as for highway use, even if it's for transporting livestock, feed, crops, or equipment. And then it also cannot be used for personal uses, such as if you use it for lawn mowing, that's supposed to be kept track of separately. And then if we move down further, the rest of these are not really going to pertain to farming. It's talking about fuels used in aviation, that type of information. So if we look down here and look to how to claim a credit and claiming a credit, we can see that some records need to be kept in order to claim the credit. So of these records, you need to make sure that you have the number of gallons that were bought and used in the period. So the period is either going to be the 1 year for the credit or the quarter if you're getting a refund. The dates of purchases need to be kept. The names and addresses of the suppliers and the amounts bought from each supplier during the period. The non-taxable use for which the fuel was used, and the number of gallons used for each of those non-taxable uses. Generally, there's only going to be really the one main use that you're going to worry about, which is the use of operating the business of the farm. Another important item to note up here is that you can't claim the credit for any amounts that were already used to get a refund on the Form 8849. So if you use the amounts to get the refund throughout the year, you can't also take the credit at the end of the year. When we take the credit, we fill out the Form 4136, and then when the credit is calculated, it flows onto the Form 1040, which is our main tax form for an individual, and that's where the credit ends up. So that way it gets refunded as the credit. Another important item to note a little bit further down is that if the fuel cost was used as an expense, if you expensed it when you bought it, then any credit or refund you receive has to be shown as income. The year in which it has to be shown as income depends on whether you use cash or accrual accounting. Generally, you're going to use cash accounting, so if you claim a credit in 2015, then in 2016, it will have to be included in income. So that is pretty much what you need to know for the fuel tax credit. Go ahead and read this 3.5-ish pages of chapter 14 just to get a little bit better understanding. But if we go to the Form 4136, it looks like it would be a complicated form. It's 4 pages long, but really it's not at all complicated. So you're going to put the name as shown on the tax return. So we can use Joe Brown. We can use, or it's asking then for his taxpayer identification number, which would be his social security number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 as a really simple example. What we're going to assume for this example is that he purchased 1,280 gallons of gasoline for use on a farm for farming purposes. So we can see that this is a non-taxable use of gasoline, and we go down to line B, use on a farm for farming purposes. Our number of gallons is 1,280. We can see that the rate really doesn't change for this section. It's going to be 0.183 no matter if it's A, B, C, or D. So then you take the 0.183 times the gallons of 1,280, and your credit is going to be $234.24. And that's it. If you scroll down further, because we don't have any additional credits that we're claiming on here, we don't have any undyed diesel fuel. Again, if we have diesel fuel in the case studies, it's going to be assumed that it's dyed diesel fuel and we don't get the credit for it. So if we scroll all the way down to the end of our form, which is on page 4, this line 17 says total income tax credit claimed. So if you had more than one credit claimed, you would add up all of your credits, but considering we only have the one, we flow down $234.24. And that is it for filling out the form. So really there's only about 5 different lines you have to worry about filling out on this form. You'll have 3 case studies for practice, 3 case studies for graded, and then you'll also have the test. Again, there is only 1 week on this because it's a fairly simple one. So all of these will be due on Friday, October 21st. If you have any questions, let me know. Either call me or send me an email. Thanks, and we'll see you on Friday.